Hey y'all, can somebody please tell me what in the f is going on with Apple's iPhone cases? Apple, buddy, we need to talk, because at this point your cases are falling apart faster than my patience. Now guys, I've owned every single iPhone since the 11 Pro Max, and I can tell you for certain that Apple's first-party iPhone cases have gotten worse over time. And unfortunately, every single year, I come back to Apple to buy a first-party case thinking it's going to be better than the last one that I bought, and I have been disappointed many years in a row now. So let's take a quick look at Apple's case lineup and see exactly where things went wrong. Now this is going to sound stupid, but every year I upgrade to the latest iPhone using the iPhone upgrade program through Apple. And every year I buy a first-party Apple case because I either really like the color or I just simply want a case that works perfectly for my phone the day that I get it. And every year when I buy a first-party Apple case, I'm always like, oh, maybe this is the year they get back to the quality that I'm accustomed to. And every year I've been disappointed. So in front of us here, we have some cases. And on the left here, these are my cases. The two over here are my wife's cases. That'll be important to us in a second. So for right now, let's focus on what I like to call the silicone case disaster. So let's go ahead and separate out our three silicone cases. These are all leather. We will touch on these in a second. So let's start with Apple's silicone case lineup, because honestly, what the heck is going on with these? So we've got three cases here. The purple one is one of my old ones, and these two are my wife's cases. Now, I've made the distinction between these three cases because my wife always has her iPhone in a case, and I typically like to keep my phone out of a case as much as possible. So let's start with the one that looks the most beat up, and that is this one, which is actually a 16 Pro Max case, unfortunately. So this case is no more than 7 months old at this point. And you can see just how worn the silicone is, especially around the edges here. The finish is already coming off, and you can see that the material is getting glossy in some places and matte in others, which is really unusual. And as I go around the case here, you can see evidence of chipping all over the place. And one thing I really found with these silicone cases is after a while, it starts looking like a little hamster is gnawing on these things for lunch, because there's chips all over the place. And it's important to note that my wife rarely drops her case. She's always putting it in her purse, in a special sleeve, or in her pocket. So it's not like she's chucking these things around. And with a lot of these cases, it's actually worn down to the point where you can see the hard plastic underneath the silicone, and that's just so ridiculous to me because these cases are $60. They should not be wearing like this, especially for a phone that's been out less than a year. Now, going over to this silicone case, I believe this was for her iPhone 15 Pro. And this one held up surprisingly well, much better than the 16 Pro Max case that she got. There really aren't any major signs of wear. We don't have the weird texture change that we saw on this particular case. It looks pretty even all the way throughout. But similarly to her 16 Pro Max case, you can see evidence of wear all over the place. So again, we've got a very major chip here, and these just happen randomly as you carry around these cases. So this is a pretty bad one in the corner there, and we also have one on the inside. I have no idea how this happened because it's not like you can drop a case and have the inside get damaged but not the outside, so that doesn't really make sense to me. But again, worn down to the point where you can see the hard plastic underneath the silicone. And I did want to compare those cases to a silicone case in actually good condition. This was for my iPhone 14 Pro Max, I believe, and this case was used extremely infrequently, so it's actually in good condition. So if you're somebody that rarely uses one of the silicone cases, it might actually hold up for you, but give it a few months and the cases will start crumbling like a granola bar. All right, so now that we've seen the silicone case disaster, move those off to the side, and we have a bunch of leather cases. Now, it's important to note that Apple doesn't actually sell leather cases for their iPhones anymore. They did switch over to a new material called fine woven that I actually did a video about, so go ahead and click the bloopy if you want to see that failure of a material. And what's really funny is it looks like Apple is discontinuing the fine woven material altogether, so eventually they might actually move back to leather cases, which I'm okay with. So here we have some of my past leather cases directly from Apple, and if I recall correctly, we have an 11 Pro Max, a 12 Pro, 13 Pro Max, and a 14 Pro Max. And the ones I really want to focus on are these two here, because I, to be honest, didn't use these two very much because, again, I really like to use my phones without cases wherever I can. But for these two particular leather cases, I used these quite a bit. So the 11 Pro Max one, it looks a little bit beaten up, and that's because I had this phone for about 2 years and I took it in this case everywhere. This case has seen water, this case has seen sand and rain. This case literally did everything. And you can really tell that the leather quality is excellent. And this was, of course, before the 12 redesign to the flat sides. In my opinion, this case was a far more durable design than the flat-sided 12 case. The rounded corners was really the way to go because this is just a more structurally sound case and it feels way more solid in the hand. You can literally feel the quality versus this one, which feels extremely cheap, and the leather feels very, very thin compared to the 11 Pro Max. Now, setting this one aside, let's look at my poor 12 Pro case. And this was in yellow leather, which I don't believe they ever offered for any other iPhone. And honestly, you can see why. And I didn't use this case as much as I did my 11 Pro Max case, but this one did see a considerable amount of use. And what's awful with this one is the color transfer. So you can tell that I primarily wear black jeans, and there is black pigment from my jeans all over this thing. This case just wore out extremely quickly, and I'm not quite sure what happened with the 12 series of cases. But I noticed after the 12 series came out with the 13 and 14 leather cases, they really hit their stride with these, and these are actually much better in terms of leather quality and overall case feel. And going back to the 12 Pro case, good quality leather is not supposed to age like this. It's not supposed to color transfer. It's not supposed to look this worn out for a case that I used for maybe 6 months in total. It's just really bad on this one. And a lot of people talk about leather getting a nice patina like I have on my 11 Pro Max case, but this isn't patina, it's just aging, and the color transfer is so bad. So here's the thing, you guys. You might think that this is a rant, and you were totally okay for thinking that, but the thing is, Apple is still charging $60 for these cases. And for less money, you can get a much better quality case. In fact, I've got one right here. This is from Mujo. I bought this on Amazon, not sponsored, and I believe I spent $45 on this leather case. And I bought this one for my 15 Pro Max because, again, Apple did not make a leather case for the 15 series, so I had to go third party with this one. The difference between this case and this one, for example, is night and day. Now, I did say that Apple really improved the leather quality after the 12 series into the 13 and 14, and that's definitely true with this one, but the leather of this case is on another level. There's a lot less give to this case versus this one. You can feel the difference in weight, you can feel the grain of the leather, and it just feels like a really high quality setting. And another thing I really enjoyed about this case, I wish I could still use this one to be honest with you guys, was the button feel is fantastic. It's got a nice accent color on all sides. The camera ring is metal, very drop resistant, and this case held up fabulously. It did take a very tiny little spill, but you can see it barely got worn even with a couple of drops. And that's more than I could say for some of my older leather cases. And comparing these two side by side, about $45 versus $60, you can really tell the difference in quality between the two of these. And I really wish that Apple continued to make leather cases. Maybe we'll see them come back for 2025, only time will tell. And one of the things that frustrates me the most is for $60, you would really expect the quality to be much better, especially for a first-party case. And I think we should really be able to rely on Apple to produce a case that doesn't start falling apart and fading within a few months, because there are a lot of third-party cases out there. D-Brand, Mujo, Spigen, they all seem to have figured it out, and they come in at a much lower price point than Apple. So should you continue to buy Apple's first-party cases? In my opinion, the answer is no, and Exhibit A would be my wife's 16 Pro Max case. A case should not be seeing this level of wear within a few months. This is borderline ridiculous. You can see the material literally peeling off the case. And again, she doesn't drop her phones. It's not like she splattered this all over the pavement and this is how this happened. This literally just happened organically. So I'm really hoping that Apple can do better for their 17 series of phones, especially since the 17 series is rumored to get a huge redesign. So hopefully that comes with a case redesign as well. And guys, thank you so much for watching this little rant/review of Apple's first-party cases. Have you noticed a decline in quality over time with your iPhone cases? Do you have a silicone case that you just bought that's all chewed up like this one? Definitely let me know in the comments. And guys, if you thought these cases were bad, let me tell you about Apple's fine woven material, which was so bad it was actually discontinued. And I did a video about that right over here, so feel free to watch that. And with that said, I'm Dan. I do tech every single day. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.